Okay.
Okay, starting on the left, we have Kevin with WRUR and Fino, and Jim from WOCR, and Don't You Tell Me. Rob from WOCR, Chris from WRUR.
We met earlier, didn't we? Yes, Chris.
And Lee from WICB, Ellen from WICB, and James, Kim, and Steve.
He's the Englishman. There's another English person here. You're lynching someone out there, yes.
Okay, well, hopefully we can get through with this painlessly as possible.
Okay.
And hopefully the crowd will go wild and start yelling obscenities like they were before.
Were they?
Yeah, they were
Oh,
great.
dear.
They were great.
Did you change them? They're keeping everybody outside.
Why is that? Why are they keeping them outside?
That's sweet.
Okay, well anyway, Chris and I have worked out between the two of us the different questions. So Chris, why don't you go ahead with the first question?
Okay. Has each album brought you closer to what you consider your own style? Or does each album represent a different facet of your own unique musical expression?
Well, can I answer it a little bit indirectly? When I do an album, I always try and make it slightly different from the previous one, and in the case with Cured, I wanted to make it drastically different from everything I'd done before. So not only was the approach towards shorter songs, but I was singing it myself, so it was the difference of having an album that was entirely instrumentally based as opposed to something which was vocal. And obviously that's extremely different from anything I've done before. And even within that, within each of the albums, there is extreme diversification, if you like.
Mm-hmm. For example, in Voyage of the Acolyte, it's almost ethereal, brings the listener above and beyond, whereas Cured is kind of straightforward and, and emotional at the same time. So how do you separate yourself from one album to the next? How can you jump into one thing to another?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. Both albums, I think, are poles apart, really. The only common thread throughout all of them, really, is hopefully a good melody line. I always go for a good melody line, whether it's going to be played on an acoustic guitar or be done with a string section or mellotron or synthesizer or guitar, whatever it is. So long as the melody sticks with you, it can take any form. In fact, one of the best known things that I did was called Spectral Mornings, and the title piece started off as a song originally, and then it became a guitar instrumental. It was merely because I played it to my then current band, and to get the melody line across, I played it on the guitar. And I said, "That sounds fine on guitar," and so why don't you keep it that way?
Mm-hmm. In line with that, there's a common thread in all of your albums, a classical kind of sense with the acoustic guitar. Do you ever foresee yourself going in that direction, as using that totally on an album?
I'd very much like to do that, yes. It would be a sideline, really. It would be a side project to the kind of albums that I'm becoming known for, really. It would be totally a labour of love, something which was approached with a non-commercial outlook. In a way, it's the sort of thing, when you do something like that, you realise it's going to be for a smaller audience, but I would like to try and diversify into two different directions like that, whereby it would be possible for me to put out acoustic albums or album and continue doing songs, things that are more suitable for airplay, really.
You recently changed all the personnel in your band, or just about all of it.
Yes.
Why the change?
Well, partly economic. It's very expensive having a full-time band, and partly due to the fact that I'd done an awful lot of touring last year, which left me depleted in terms of the number of songs which I normally write. I found that ever since I've been a solo act doing the kind of tours that mean that you're doing England, France, Germany, Italy, Belgium, Switzerland, America, Canada. It doesn't leave a lot in between. And when you're fronting the band and it's your name, most of the time you end up doing the things that in a band are kind of shared out roles, really. So I tend to find if I had 2 minutes to spare to myself last year, it was a rarity, and it's similar with this year. I mean, it's marvelous. I enjoy it, but it is extremely busy, and at times you say, yeah, it'd be really nice to have the kind of time to write. So what I found that I did was to go to South America, which is where my wife Kim comes from, who's here, and we disappeared off there for 3 months, and I did nothing but write and get fit, really, for this leg this year.
What kind of differences do you see between the two bands?
Well, this band, there is a different kind of approach. The personalities, I think, gel more. Strange thing is that physically everybody looks slightly similar. There's a strange kind of physiognomy that pervades the band. I mean, we're all about the same size, apart from the drummer, who's built massively, but people mistake him, in fact, for my brother, because he looks quite similar. Well, quite apart from that, I think musically we seem to be of the same ilk, if you like. Chaz Cronk, my bass player, was with a band called Straubs, and he was one of the principal writers with them for 4 years, and I worked very, very closely with him as a bass player. It's the first time I've worked with somebody whose sound I don't question and say I could have maybe done that better myself. And similarly with Ian, my drummer, who has a tremendous sense of humour. I feel there's a slightly perverse quality about his playing that complements mine. So that thread runs throughout the whole band, really, and it's a very tight, good new band. I'd like to do an album, possibly with this.
Speaking of the drummer, with the last album that you did, you didn't use a drummer.
I didn't use a drummer, right.
Can you explain a little bit more about this technology now?
The technology, yeah. Well, both myself and Nick Magnus are what is known as mechanites, which means that we are more into machines than people, or have been. Again, partly economic consideration meant that we got together last year, and instead of surrounding ourselves with a whole bunch of musicians, we said, I wonder what can we get out of machines? What can be done? What are the sort of total sum capabilities of partnership, really? I said, well, perhaps I can probably sing. Perhaps I can play bass. I've never done that before, and play the guitar. Nick did the keyboards. And he said, I'd really like to have a shot at trying to do the whole thing on a drum machine. So we had various discussions about it. We said, I wonder if a drum machine, for instance, can be programmed to do uneven length bars, like musicians can. Like can it stretch out, so to speak? And we found that it could do, because it has a computer memory. It has 99 links, so that you can punch in each bar, get it dead right, and you'd have 99 different bars, so you can have it switching around as many time signatures as you like. And from the word go, when we first heard this machine, we were incredibly impressed with the actual sound of it. Normally you have to work at a drum sound for a long time, but this has got the advantage of digitally recorded sounds and total separation. You aren't compromised. Normally when you record a drum kit, you're slightly compromised by the cymbals, the top kit, and a lot of producers like to overdub certain things like tom-toms, perhaps. With this, you don't really have to do that. It's already totally isolated. So I think it's my best produced drum sound, if you like.